Good afternoon. This summer's project laid the framework to hold a baseball tournament fundraiser benefiting the Wounded Warrior Project. I'm Ryan Bucher. I'll be covering the project introduction as well as integration and risk management. Following me will be Nick Newell, who will talk about quality management. Next will be Ben Timmons covering procurement management. And lastly will be Matt Cannella with HR management. The purpose of our project was to not only raise money, but awareness for the Wounded Warrior Project, as well as increasing exposure to the top high school baseball talent in the Rocky Mountain region by inviting college and professional scouts to watch them play during this tournament. Our major objectives were to raise at least $300,000 for the Wounded Warrior Project, to reach at least 20,000 people to educate them on the cause of the Wounded Warrior Project, and reach at least one major media outlet to cover the event. The big milestones for our project in terms of integration are obtaining the support of corporations in the community through sponsorships and partnerships. Without them, there's no way this thing would happen. Then next, conducting the actual tournament, and then ultimately giving a donation to the Wounded Warrior Project. The role of the project team is paramount to this project, as all the other components revolve around that project team, and all functions are executed, monitored, and then controlled by the project team. Now on to risk management. We developed this risk management process, as you can see in this diagram here. From here we can derive our risk management plan by taking inputs from our scope, the individual component plans, the project team itself, and stakeholder representatives, as we view the major cause of our tournament here is increasing the community exposure. So we really want to get those folks involved in every aspect, and risk management is included, obviously. From that plan, we then can identify our risks, analyze those risks, and then respond to those risks in whatever form or fashion. For this plan, we developed our risk score matrix, as you can see in this diagram here. This allows us to score each and individual risk. Then that way we can analyze them, rank them, and determine which risks cause the biggest threat to the ultimate success of our project and tournament. We determined that the biggest concerns we had, the biggest risks we had, revolved around not obtaining enough sponsorship, not giving a donation to the Wounded Warrior Project, and insufficient number of game personnel, whether that be umpires, baseball players, things like that. So those were kind of the ones we viewed as killing the project, and then further on down the road were things like weather and not getting hot dogs and things like that for everybody. So that's risk management. I'm going to hand it over to Nick Newell for quality management. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nick Newell. Today I'm going to talk to you about quality management as it pertains to our project. I have two key items on my agenda. I'm going to go over some traditional quality tools and techniques that are normally used in projects, and then I'm going to cover one particular technique that we used in our project called a knowledge transfer. First, let's start with the traditional tools and techniques. Most of the items on this list are pretty familiar to you, I'm sure. A quality checklist, a process flow chart, quality metrics, control charts, histograms. Let's step through them one at a time. A quality checklist. So first of all, we took our key objectives from our project charter and used that as a quality checklist to use throughout the project to make sure that we were hitting the key objectives that were assigned early on in the project. Of course, that's one way to maintain quality, is to make sure that you're doing what you set out to do. A process flow chart. Of course, process is important in project management, so we identified the process with the 5 process groups, laid those out in a flow chart complete with stage gates to make sure that as we go through the project, we're following the natural flow of the process and completing each stage gate before we move on to the next step. We identified some quality metrics. There's 3 metrics that were key to our project. There's a scope performance index to maintain the scope, a schedule performance index for the schedule, and a cost performance index. So what we can do with those, as usual, is track them throughout the life of the project. So you'll see here a chart that's highlighting the income received versus the income planned throughout the life of the project. Of course, not all of this data is 100% accurate because some of it is fictional. We didn't actually plan the project, but you can see what it would look like, and then you can also see on the next slide what a control chart would look like if you use those against each other to maintain your upper and lower limits and make sure you're in between those. In this case, on our control chart, we have a 50% upper and lower limit because that was acceptable for our project. And finally, a histogram. You can see on this one, there's a cause of missed deadlines, some other priorities, poor planning, you name it. A histogram is a very easy way to track quality throughout a project. So those are traditional. Now, let's talk about W. Edwards Deming. Of course, he's known for his quality management work, and he's also known for a system of profound knowledge. He advocated that all managers have 4 things: an appreciation of a system, a knowledge of variation, a theory of knowledge, and the knowledge of psychology. And my favorite is the quote there at the bottom that kind of sums this up for me, that there is no substitute for knowledge. So that brings me to what I call a knowledge transfer. We're back to the process flowchart there on the left that has the 5 process groups. And I've identified 5 knowledge zones. Now I call these knowledge zones because there's probably a different set of people within each zone that has the knowledge. For example, what if Ryan was in the first zone, and then Ben, and then Matt, and then Nick? What this does is this creates a chasm between Ryan and Ben and Matt and Nick of knowledge. Knowledge has to be transferred between zone 1 to zone 2, and in order to do that, I propose a knowledge transfer plan. Now this is fairly simple. On the left, it states the transitions between the stages, and then it says who's going to be transferring from and who's going to be transferring to the knowledge, and also provides a means for a forum. So let's talk about how this applies at my job. I brought this into this project from my experience at EchoStar because this is the process flowchart that we have. There are 8 process groups on the left because we follow a software development lifecycle, and between the first and the second chunk, between my team at EchoStar and a vendor 5,000 miles away, is a chasm. And then coming back over the ocean from the vendor to another team at EchoStar at my company, there's another chasm. And as you can see, that's a 5,000-mile chasm with a language barrier, I might add. That's quite the chasm to cross. So it's very important for my team to have a knowledge transfer plan to get the information and the knowledge from one person to another. As you can see here, from an architect to a developer, we have a need in a forum to transfer things like an overview statement, requirements, and an architecture summary in a meeting, and a review from an architect to a development manager. And then after that, coming back to my team, the development manager has to get similar information to a QA manager in order to assure quality at the back of the life cycle. That's all for me. I'll now pass it on to Ben, who's going to talk about procurement management. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ben Timmons, and I'm responsible for scope management, time management, and procurement. For this presentation, we'll be focusing on procurement, specifically a tool that we developed for supplier management and status communication. Procurement is critical for our project. We have over 20 different line items ranging from services to materials to facilities. Managing and communicating that supplier status is an important function for the procurement management team. So to address this challenge, we developed a tool that we can use to both manage the supplier and succinctly communicate key supplier status areas. It's called the 5-blocker tool. It's a 1-page format for each supplier with 5 status sections or blocks. Each block contains a concise qualitative or quantitative assessment on important knowledge areas, looking at things like supplier overview, earned value management, schedule, risk. It's statused on a monthly basis. Frequency is adjusted as necessary depending on whether or not you are having issues with the supplier. At a high level, it's a one-stop, high-level management and communications tool. It's got everything on there that you need. It's a universal format that you can use for both suppliers, projects, and programs. There's an overview of the 5-blocker. You've got the title, and you've got the current month on the top bar, and then each one of the 5 blocks that I'll be talking about. First block is the supplier overview. That's in the top right-hand corner. The supplier overview has key procurement information. It's got the procurement officer, the program manager, and supplier location. You've got key contract information, the contract type, value, and funding level, period of performance, the deliverables. You've also got any contract changes that happen during the current month. Since changes are so important with suppliers, you identify things like changes to the current delivery dates, requirements, T's and C's, etc. The next block, we talk earned value. This contains current and previous month earned value status. It allows you to look at the monthly and inception to date metrics to compare. You have important things on there like estimate to complete, variance to complete, CPI, SPI, percent complete, and percent spent. This is often the second most insightful block on the red, yellow, green, or second to the red, yellow, green, and top risks. There's a lot of information you can draw from this block. Third block is the red, yellow, green, and top risks. This allows or provides a qualitative and quantitative assessment of top supplier management areas and risks that's conducted by the procurement officer. They assign either red, yellow, or green to each one of the categories you can see in the table below. And it also identifies the top risks with a brief status on those risks. I won't go through each category, but at least the criteria for them, but we hit overall status, technical status, cost, schedule, risk, and quality. The next block, we have scheduled progress. Looking at that, we have key current month accomplishments that this identifies basically everything they accomplished in the past month. Those accomplishments tie directly to any important criteria in earned value management, risk. It also ties to supplier schedules, and you can use this to compare to the previous month 5 blocker. You also have future month events listed there as well. This is anything that's major that the supplier plans on completing in the coming month. And this also allows you for the next coming month's 5 blocker to compare, did they get done what they plan to get done. The last block, we have the return to green plan. The return to green plan comprises the supplier's plan to return to a green rating if they're anything other than green overall, either yellow or red. It identifies the primary issue driving them to a yellow or red rating, what their action plan is to recover. It provides their new target rating, either hopefully a green, and provides estimated completion date for the actions that they're working, as well as a success criteria for which they're going to judge themselves.
This is Matt Cannella, and I'm the head of HR and Communications Management for this project, so just going to go over some of those tools. As a brief overview, the people really make the project, so HR is an essential part of any project. You can organize the members of a team into a hierarchy, and we've chosen the projectized organization for this project just to help keep everything together in a project format. As Bob mentioned in one of the first lectures, communication is about 90% of a project manager's job, so effective communication is required for any successful project, and a communication plan can be a great tool to stay on top of communications, and I'll show you ours in a couple slides. But it must be used as a living document. It must be refined constantly as the project goes on to remain useful, so we'll talk about that too. To help remain useful, I'm hoping to introduce some new tools to the class that weren't really talked about in class. And one of those is MailChimp, which is a free email marketing tool that can help make attractive, professional-looking newsletters to send out to your stakeholders, your sponsors, and other members of the project. And also Boomerang for Gmail, which is a great add-on to the Gmail service, and it aids in ensuring continued contact with various stakeholders of your project. So just as a brief overview, I'll run through these real quick. You've all seen the RACI chart before. This is ours. After we created our projectized hierarchy, we broke up our WBS tasks, and we went through and made sure that each person was responsible for our tasks. So you can see them there. R for responsible, A for accountable, C for consultant, and I for informant, as you guys remember from class. Next is our communications plan, and this really just lists all of the communications that we plan on having for the project. It's a great way to stay on top of the communications, to schedule them, how frequent these communications need to go out, basically who needs to hear what and at what time. To help make this happen, 2 great tools that I've used in the past, one is MailChimp and the other is Boomerang. MailChimp is a great email newsletter creator. It's free for up to 12,000 emails per month, so that's a lot, and you can have up to 2,000 subscribers that those emails are going out to. So that's also a lot. It's plenty big for any project. It's easy to use. I know you can't really read the text on the image over on the right, but it's just to show you an idea of a general template. They have a bunch of different email templates on the website, and it's very easy to embed images or videos to make it more interactive for your project stakeholders. You can organize and manage email groups, which is great, and you can create subgroups for any levels of stakeholders. For example, you could have project sponsors, project champions, board of directors, in their own groups, and you can schedule goals for how often you want to keep in contact with them. So learn more at MailChimp.com. Next is Boomerang for Gmail. It's another great tool. It's an add-on for Google's Gmail service. It's an email scheduler, so you can write an email now and you can have it sent at a later date and time. I know this is similar to the Microsoft Outlook mail scheduler, but this is a little bit better because the computer doesn't have to be online to send that email. So it actually uploads the email to a cloud server and it can send it even if the computer's off. It has great email reminder function, so you can have emails returned to your inbox, so you can archive or delete an email and then have it scheduled to come back to your inbox when you need it, which is great because you can never lose touch of people. Because say you send out an email to a contact, and if you don't get a response within, say, 2 weeks, you can have the program bump that back up in your inbox just to send out a reminder email. So that's great. It's great for nonprofit projects. You can get up to 10 scheduled messages per month for free, which is pretty good. It works with Gmail, which has become pretty much the standard for personal email use. And it's easy to install as an add-on across multiple operating systems. So it works on Linux, Mac, and Windows operating systems. So it's a pretty good feature. To find out more, go to www.boomeranggmail.com. And that's it from HR and communications. I hope you guys have learned some good tricks. Thanks.